Hi, everyone, and welcome to Astrology with Jeffrey Bryan. Today, I have a good friend of mine, Stephanie, who does past life regressions. So I'm going to let Stephanie introduce herself and tell us exactly how she got into this field and exactly what she does. So, off to you, Stephanie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Okay, so I have done past life regression work for the last about 4.5 years, I believe, something like that. And that was really in an official capacity. And then I was working with friends in ceremonial settings, and we were doing all sorts of other lifetime explorations. And then I decided that it was such a powerful tool for being able to really integrate these parts of ourselves that had been fragmented, as well as literally remembering the self is one of the most powerful things I feel we can do. So as I begin to have my own memories, that's why I decided to go into past life regression work, because I got to see myself without just, it's great to have psychics tell us all about ourselves. It's a whole nother thing to experience it viscerally for ourselves. And actually just recently, I changed the name of my work from past life regression to quantum starseed integration sessions. And really this is because I've recognized that we are going all over the place, back and forth in time and parallel and in between lifetimes and all areas in between. So it just became obvious that the work was really quantum work. And so many people here are starseeds, and they are looking to activate memory. They're looking to heal. They're looking to connect with their gifts. So really that's what that's about. And of course, integration, we're doing the healing work. We're integrating these parts that want to come into the state of wholeness that we always have been. So,
And
yeah.
I know you're a star seed. So there's different kinds of star seeds. So, I mean, I remember the original woman who came up with seeing like the indigo children, the person who saw in only color. She didn't see people like in physical form. It was like in colors. And all of a sudden she started seeing this indigo color with young children. And so that was like the starting point where people started going, okay, there's indigo. And then there's, crystalline and all these different kinds. So do you have like a title for which kind you are? I know personally, I recently, my mom found an old book of hers that she was sending to her niece, and so I picked it up and I took the question. There was like this long questionnaire of like 14 different types of questions, and I can't remember. I was two things. I know one was, I think, a crystal, and I can't remember what the other color was. And I was told years ago I was indigo, but according to this test, I didn't test as an indigo. So I didn't know what you thought you were, or if you actually know.
Well, I have played with all the different labels. I've identified myself as being like indigo, and then I think the crystalline is apparently the more like newer generation, I guess, but I don't know. I think it can be anything. But since, again, like I played with, old soul and this and that, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm all the things.
Right.
And I let myself just be exactly, because I'm literally like watching how I jump all over time and dimensionality. So yeah, I just don't necessarily connect at this point with any particular label, but there was a time that I was very much feeling really connected to that for sure. Yeah, so that's interesting. But I know that you've done some other lifetime exploration. Like do you have some lifetimes that like really jump out at you as far as, what you feel really connected to?
Not particularly that jump out of me. Or in dream states, I have these, and in meditations, like when I meditate a lot, I meditate a lot.
Mhm.
some people see colors and different things, and sometimes that comes, but especially when I first started meditating, I would see these ancient faces in my, third eye come to me. And then in dreams, I get a lot of very, very ancient people like that. I've never had like alien people come, but like very ancient people with like hoops in the ring, like and sticks in their noses and ears and all kinds of, stuff like that. And also Native American faces and people come to me, and a lot of I have this like this sensory perception of like even feeling like if I'm next. This is different than like the ancient things going on, but like if I'm standing in proximity to someone or sitting in a chair, or even if I'm in a car, person next to me, I can feel and perceive what they're going through. It's always been kind of a difficult thing to be in large crowds because of this like extra sensory perception. So that's where I've tried to work through energy healing, or and even energy harmonization. I like to use better, and meditation to get my vibration to a point where I'm not so affected by all this other stuff, because as your frequency increases, you start to feel happy and joyous, and you're in this divine state of love where you're living from your heart center more than these lower energy centers, which really helps when you're trying to navigate through the world. But also life takes its challenges and throws them on you, and it makes it difficult even when you're doing all these things. Sometimes the mind can get wrapped around negative things even when you're in these states or challenges. Or I've been psychically attacked before several times, and that it's like when you're trying to become a beacon of light, the darkness wants to take that down, and so it tries to do stuff. I don't know how that feels for you.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had my own experiences. I think it's actually super common to experience psychic attacks like fairly regularly, whether it's in dream states or just in, thoughts that come through that are not actually our own, as well as all different ways that psychic attacks can happen. I had a period of time where I was like really fiery around them, like around these energies that were meddling. And I was like, I would want to like, just scream profanities at them and that type of thing, and like get the fuck out of my sphere kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I still have a lot of fire, and I work with it in a different way. It's more, I don't really need to go to that level of fighting. I notice when I'm feeling like, okay, there's some lower frequencies that are interacting with me. I'm just finding a new navigation with them. It's still also like not okay, still not cool with it. And I absolutely have boundaries around it. But there's just it's interesting as I think we continue to develop ourselves, we both simultaneously become softer and also better in our boundaries simultaneously. Whereas when we're still really working things out, we might like have a harsher energy as we're attempting to establish those boundaries because we're unsure of how to do it. That was my personal experience anyway.
Right. Speaking of boundaries, it almost feels like sometimes there's no boundary, but there is. So I'll give you an example of sometimes what happened to me, and still does. I could be in a room, or I could have been in a healing session with someone, but I'll feel something pressing on me, like out on my aura, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I've got to get out of this room. I've got to get out of this room. And I've tried every kind of prayer, intention, incantation, mirrors, domes, and everything you can possibly think of to protect myself, pump up my aura. I know how to do ancient grounding techniques and using, the vibrational frequency of roses and all these different things. And yet still I feel these things. And if I don't get out and I stay, this thing will attach to me. And I remember I was at this group with these, I used to meet once a month with these people that were acupuncturists, psychologists, substance abuse counselors, and all kinds of therapists. And there was one lady there that could pick up and know like what little beings would be somewhere in someone's office that it was a therapist. And we would all go in there and we would, swing our pendulum and we'd see where the energy was off and stuff. We would do all these different kinds of exercises. But I told my friend Linda, who'd been a psychologist for nearly 50 years at the time, she's older, that I can't go anymore. There's a being in that room, and I think it's attached to me. And anyway, I started losing my eyesight, and I was starting to almost go paralyzed down the side of my body. And I went to, first you think you're having a physical problem, but I knew this was like a spiritual problem, but I didn't know where to go. So I went to the doctor. I got, they took me through all these different scans and tests. I went to acupuncturists to try, and energy healers to try to do stuff. I went to the eye doctor. My eyes were perfect. So what do? I called my astrology teacher and the guy that taught me the deeper aspects of meditation. And I said, I don't know what to do. And he said, Jeff, I told you years ago, you're open to psychic attack, and you have it in the keyword of the experience of good versus evil. So I've always been open up to having this attacking thing. And I had heard this he does them on cassette tapes. And I'd listened to that, but never really understood at that point what he was really saying. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he goes, call this woman in Montana. She'll help you. And we did a 3-hour session over the phone, and everything came back. And that's when I was like, dang, there's something really to this spiritual attack, because I'd seen every doctor and kind of person in town and nobody knew. But this lady knew how to do these things through the spiritual realm to detach and get rid of this being that had gone into it attaches, and then they try to go in deep into the body.
Yeah.
And that can be, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
If you tell this to normal people, they're like, yeah, right, this guy's crazy.
I've seen it. I have seen it so many different ways. I've done a lot of different, circle ceremonies and healing sessions, and worked with, friends in those spaces where we're really like all in the space of learning how to identify these things. And I really had my psychic eyes opened to being able to see these things. And mind you, I'm not walking around always seeing them. That's not how it really works for me, but I can definitely tap into it at different points. And yeah, I've seen like, little scraggly things like hanging out in a friend's aura one time. And it was like these like kind of sluggy looking things. They look like little black sluggy things. And then one time with actually like myself and my husband, I was seeing like another sluggy thing attached. It was, I think, initially kind of working its way through both of us in different ways, but I could see exactly where it was attached. So yeah, these things are very real, and they can look all different kinds of ways. It's not like they're always these black sluggy things. I've seen, other things as well. I got a real weird story for you.
Okay. I've got a lot of weird stories too.
Oh yeah. These weird energies that like, I had a lot of fear around these energies at one point, and now it's like, I'm not afraid. I'll just look at them right in the face and like, let's just not have a conversation necessarily, because that's not always in the cards, but the fear really isn't present for me. And that's when things started to like just not be in my, like, it wasn't possible to be in my field. I feel like that's been my experience, but they got really, really sneaky and would work through my dreams in a very, very seditious, sneaky way. And those were the trickiest ones because they weren't able to interact with me in the same way on the waking plane, or at least what we're calling the waking plane. But when I was sleeping, that's when it got really gnarly for me in the last couple of years. But it's gotten a lot better in the last 6 months or so.
So just to stop there, that's the astral plane where these things do attack and attach.
Yeah.
And I've been telling people for years that if you're using drugs or if you're drinking, this is how the alcoholism and substance abuse problems really manifest. Is you need to have a spiritual healer go in, because they attach to you when your body and your mind and everything has been gone into this state that it can't defend itself. And these beings can come in your sleep state.
Yep.
You know the difference of energy frequencies and worlds that exist, then you understand how these beings can come in and attach. So it's not a coincidence. I minored in substance abuse in college, and the success rate in like the first year, I think it was first year to 3 years, the success rate is like 20%, and by 3 years it's like 90, and by 5 years it's almost like a 0% that someone will recover. And it parallels the recidivism rate for incarceration. So if you've been incarcerated and put in jail or prison, you have an 80% chance of returning. And this is usually due to addiction issues.
Yeah.
Or bizarre thinking patterns. So what's causing this?
Yeah.
So this is perfect how you're talking about this. They kind of secretly go in and attack you in a different way. And how do people beat this? You have to find people that have gifts like you and other people with gifts that really know how to get these things out of there, or else these tricks that they give, like at substance abuse places and stuff like this, because this is a big topic, not going by the bar or the place you used to go to, or not seeing your friends that you were with or whatever. Those are all exterior tactics that really don't do it. You have this urge within you, or this thing propelling your mind over and over and over. I have to have it. I have to have it. I have to have it.
Yeah.
That's not really you thinking these thoughts.
That's so accurate. Or if there's a part of you that is connecting with, well, how do I put it? There's usually, for any of these beings, there's a way in, right? And so there's always this like way that they're getting into our psyche. I know for me, I've had many, many dreams where I experienced attacks, and I was so clear on it a lot of the time. And then there'd be certain times where I really did think it was me. And that's because they were linking up with thoughts that I run in my own mind, that it's some things that I'm working out trauma-wise or whatever. And so they kind of attach to those thoughts, and they kind of use that as their gateway into the psyche. So it becomes extremely difficult to identify which is which. And because I had gotten really, really good at identifying both in my waking life and in my dream state, because I'm actually a strangely, I've spent a lot of time practicing my skills in my dream state, from lucid dreaming to astral traveling to all sorts of things, and to become really aware when I'm having past life or other life dreams, communications of some kind with a guide or someone like that, a higher aspect of myself. So anyway, I had gotten really good at that. And so when it was happening, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because I have like really done a lot, but it was so seditious. It was so sneaky. So it's funny because even when we become really good at identifying them, they can actually be even sneakier. Like they're like, okay, next level sneaky status. Like that's what they'll do if they have to.
So what would you do once you recognize this, like say in a dream state or lucid dreaming, or even astral travel? What would you do to not allow it to happen? Because was it just the awareness? Because I have, like we have people that always talk about, like Eckhart Tolle always talks about, having the awareness is what you need to raise this up. I always feel like he's missing steps and he's talking to he's still trying to figure out what happened to him. So the awareness of it isn't enough.
Right. I agree. It's not just awareness. And I think this is similar to doing, past life regression work or quantum work. It's not just the awareness, it's also in what we're doing energetically. So I was really, once I did become aware, like I knew I was being attacked, but it was just a matter of like, where is their freaking gate? Like, what is their gateway here? And I kind of knew what the gateway was because I knew like what they were using to attack. And then I was beginning to uncover what trauma was still, or what was unresolved in my own psyche.
Right.
And I literally don't have, that was happening on such an incredibly regular basis. Like it was happening all the time. And it was really fucking with me. It was fucking with my sleep, my, relationships. Like it was really, really messing with my head. Because
I've had something similar to this too.
Totally. And these beings, they know when, well, first of all, I had just moved houses and there was like this huge upheaval that had happened. And so it was like, when you kind of get a little bit like dysregulated from, that type of experience, and there was a lot of stress involved with that because it was during like the beginning of all the craziness with blah, 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 with the C word. So with all of that craziness, like there was just so much stress and intensity. But anyway, yes, the awareness, but beyond that, like literally the energetic work, what is their entry point, and identifying that and then working with that piece. So yeah, it's cleared, fortunately. And I did work with someone who, sometimes when we're that deep in something, right? Like that's, as you were talking about earlier, like working with the healer. As someone who does healing work, I also work with other people who do healing work. I get my astrology read by people like you. And
I go to people like you. So, we all need each other, to help each other with our gifts and talents. And, I was born with my natal Neptune in the 6th house of work and service and health. And I never realized it about myself because it's the planet of channeling. And so, a lot of massage therapists and energy healers have like a Neptune in a house like this, the 6th house. But what I've really started identifying with at this point in my life is that I'm very the sensitivities involved with the Neptune. So not just like people, but food, how they're affecting my body. That I could eat the wrong food and it affects my body mentally and physically, and I could be totally a different person based on what I'm eating now.
Yeah.
So, and right now, planetarily, Neptune has been in Pisces, and we're going to have this huge Jupiter-Neptune conjunction coming up in Pisces, which is massive because Jupiter comes and hits Neptune every 12 years. It takes Jupiter around roughly 12 years to go around the zodiac. It takes Neptune 165 years to go from its natal position in its home planet of Pisces. 165 years to go around the zodiac. So in our lifetime and probably in our grandchildren's lifetime, this conjunction will not occur, and it's in its most potent and strongest strength. And Neptune is the highest planetary frequency that there is. And Jupiter is an expansion of this frequency. Jupiter's positive, right? It's this
Yeah.
positive planet of abundance, joy, excess. So if you have this excess of high energy, it's going to be very difficult for the human nervous system to deal with
Yeah.
this energy. So you have a lot of people freaking out. And we're not even talking about, Pluto and Uranus yet, planetarily of what they're doing. Pluto's in Capricorn. It's really bringing, and we just had Mars, Mars conjunct it a few days ago.
Yeah.
And so that really brought up deep anger within people, the collective. So these are transcendent planets, so they're all involved with the collective as well as you individually. So you may have a harmonious one. You may have worked on yourself so much that it didn't affect you as much as it affects people that aren't working on themselves. Or maybe it's bringing up something that they hadn't thought of working on. And now that, because there's always going to be an aspect till we're dead of something that needs to be worked on. I don't care
Oh yeah.
who you are. If you're like living a life, things keep happening. Past life, things can keep coming up. Things get activated. And it's all to heal. This is what this talk is about. It's all to heal us. So when I see a negative aspect occurring in someone's chart, someone can say, oh man, that person has a tough life, or that person has all this negative karma or whatever. And I look at them as, spiritual warriors that came here to get a lot accomplished and a lot healed, go through a lot of turmoil sometimes. Sometimes it really takes them down a notch. But people like you and I are here to help them. I have had many therapists come to me dissatisfied in their work when I was doing healing work. And I would notice that the energy was not shifting for them. They could have massages, acupuncture, Reiki, cranial sacral therapy, all these things. And it wasn't until I started bringing in astrology back when I hardly even knew anything. I would try my best. Sometimes I would even spend my own money to call my personal astrologer to talk to them about a client and see where they were at. And once I explained to them about their chart, it was like something shifted. They could now understand, and the healing process could now begin on a deeper level than it could before.
That's amazing.
They could still get energy harmonization. They could still do regressions or whatever, but it was this psychological understanding that they couldn't break that pattern. And so mixing these different methods together sometimes really you never know which one it is. Like a lot of times people come to you and they'll say, I've been to everyone, you're my last hope. How many people have heard that as a healer out there? And then it's you that breaks it. And they're like, oh my gosh, you are like a god, you saved me. Well, they're forgetting all the people that they saw.
Yes, that's just thinking. I was like, all the pieces literally just come together. And that's really how I see it all the time. And like when I get a download of information, I know that download of information, I'm not just like, oh my God, I just pulled this amazing piece of information. I mean, it's always kind of cool. Like, yes, that's beautiful. I'm appreciative. I'm grateful, but I recognize that it's coming from like something else, but also I've been thinking about this thing. I listened to this podcast or this YouTube channel or whatever, and all the pieces come together from different things we've been doing. And that applies all across the board. Yeah, I totally agree.
So a lot of people are going through a lot right now, and I've been feeling it in myself, even if it's not me personally. I feel like I've just felt this buildup in the collective of this, kind of non-trust of a lot of people and of governments, and of this built up anger, and people having to do things that they don't want to do at their jobs, or, the government's imposing. And so there's a lot going on in the world that we haven't really seen before. So there's a technique that my teacher taught that I thought it came to me super easy. But for a lot of people, it doesn't come very easy. And that he used to say, you have to learn how to hold space. And you hear this from a lot of people that do not just healing work, but like shamans. They hold space. They like, say you go to like an ayahuasca ceremony or some kind of a medicine ceremony. You have the shaman there, not just performing the rituals and stuff, but he's holding a space for your healing and also for your protection, right?
Yeah.
When you go into these deep realms, deep spiritual realms, right? So
Oh yeah.
when I started learning to hold space, I was like, okay, I can do this. And so I learned how to hold space for, like, say, a person. And then the teacher said, hey, Jeff, I want you to come to the class and co-teach with me. And I'd say, okay. So I would get there and he'd be like, I just want you to go sit in the room and hold space for the entire class and see how easy that is for like an entire day. So hold space for, say, 20 or 30 people. Now, think how hard it is to hold space for the entire planet. This is what Mother Earth is doing. Okay. So you've got this planet holding space for all of our emotional natures. And so when this builds up in the astral world, I always like to talk about, like, the dream world is where we release stress and dreams. But when this buildup gets so big and it starts to manifest in the physical world, we start seeing the earth start manifesting different with earthquakes, storms, hurricanes, tsunamis, and stuff, because it has to give just like a human body has to give.
Yeah.
There has to be a release of tension.
Oh yeah.
Just like we can exercise and things of this nature, meditate, but the earth is a living, breathing organism. It's a being of itself. It's here for humanity. It gives us air, water, the earth to grow plants and all these different things. So to hold space is a concept that I had to come to terms with, in terms of when something isn't going right, or I'm in presence of like a negative attachment or whatever, or a person that's very angry, I hold space. Now, an interesting concept in the energy healing world that my teacher taught was, when you're in a session, and there's all kinds of things with drawing fulcrums and all this, but I wanted to tell you, it's like, think of the earth, the space of the room you're in, or the space of your aura. They say 3 feet around you, or you can expand it or contract it, but just think roughly the size of your arms is your aura. Then that's your space. Now think of holding space that's bigger than that, your room.
Yeah.
You can go your city. You can expand your space out to, I like to sit outside of the Milky Way galaxy as my space.
Yeah.
So when say you're in a healing session, and you're working on someone, in your mind, it's like an app on a cell phone. You open these apps up. You can open like a quantum field, or you can open up energy like a light field. You can open up a grounding or earth field. You can open up fields, and you've got your own space where you're at in your mind. And you're in this person's consciousness. I don't know if you've heard of this before.
I'm fascinated. I'm totally following your thread. Yeah, it's fun.
So you have like this, but you can hold your space while you're in the presence of something that you don't want to affect you. So if there was something coming up within another person, like anger, and they're sitting there yelling at you or something like that. So you're not even in a session, but they're just yelling. You can it's not really detaching, but you're there, right. You're present, you're ground, but you've got your space held, and you can hold space for this person within that space. It's kind of a difficult concept for some people to grasp, but space gives that conscious being room to breathe and release. It's not stuck to the confines of their body or their aura. They've got this space. And I found that when you hold space for something, the actual guy that came up with craniosacral therapy found out that when he would try to force energy or force things or talk to the body, it would not work. But when he sat there in the presence of a body and he had all his instruments hooked up and he did nothing but hold space, the body would automatically function in its own harmony to heal itself. And so from there, they learned that you could ask the body if it needed help or guidance or whatever. So it's almost like the presence of holding and doing nothing. Of being is one of the healing mechanisms.
I totally fully agree. And it's so fun to just follow you on that journey, because I was like, interesting, because this is very much what I do, holding space, but I know. I love it. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I'm not just like, whatever, but I hadn't put it into that terminology before. So I really appreciate that. And I very much feel that. I've had, Reiki sessions, and before they even get started, they're just kind of holding space, right? Like that's maybe part of what they do to open up the space, is just to like really ground in. And as they're just being present, I'm already going through an entire process and having these like activations and chills moving through my body. So I know exactly what you're speaking to. And I feel it myself when I'm consciously holding space. I'm having my own experience of like, this just feels so blissful. It feels so good.
Right. And
I'm present to like whatever wants to come up. And is there anything that I might be able to do in service? I'm loving this because just recently, so I was feeling this like pulsing energy, this idea that wanted to birth itself through me. And it's an interesting thing to like try to put this into words, but I could just feel the energy of it. I could just feel that there was like something that was wanting to come through. And it wasn't just a channeling, but it was a very specific thing that wanted to happen. If that makes sense. And so I took some time as I was lying in bed. It was nice and quiet. And I just took a moment to connect with the collective thread of energy that was kind of reaching out to me. And something that I like to do is connect with the cosmic web. And I really see that very much like you might look at what the brain looks like when the, dendrites and the nucleus, and it's sending out the information through the dendrites, through the neural pathways to the other, it looks like this cosmic web of consciousness.
Right.
So there was the particular thread of our collective consciousness that is on this planet right now. And they are desiring the liberation. They're desiring freedom on this planet. They're desiring peace and joy. They don't want and I'm not even just talking about what's happened in the last couple of years. I'm talking like they came here to be a part of this movement, to experience ease, peace, and love, and just all the things. So I was connecting with that thread of consciousness, and I was just holding space for it and saying, I'm present. What would you like? What can I do in service to this part of our consciousness? And from that place, the idea then birthed itself through me. And it's staying nestled and close for right now because it needs to be. That's how it wants to plant its roots. But that's another interesting piece about holding space is it can happen through the way that we bring in information from the unseen realms, as we might say. Yeah. So
holding space for yourself is a little bit more like healing the self is a little bit more challenging. It's a lot easier always to do outside of yourself than inside yourself, because it's just like you don't have the answers to all your questions. I've always had this problem. Like I could sense and perceive all these different things with people, see their energy field, see like things wrapped around their neck, like energy bands or around their stomach or whatever's going on, or a cord or whatever's going on. But for myself, I can't see that. I don't have this like ability to view myself, and we get caught up with like other people's lives and what they're doing or helping other people, that a lot of times the self gets neglected. And so there's a big thing with self-care that we need to be aware of. But holding space for the self is almost like a constant practice of meditation.
Oh yeah.
This awareness to allow the self to be okay, because we're in this time right now where the planet Saturn is in Aquarius, and he's been in there for a long time, and he's been squaring the planet Uranus for about a year and a half, and they're finally breaking away. But Uranus is the planet of freedom and liberation and independence, and Saturn is the planet that rules the government, but it's also the planet of anxiety, fear, depression, and death. And it's in a collective sign of Aquarius, which is about communication and freedom and, being able to communicate. And here we've had, lots of things that are suppressing voices, suppressing our ability to travel as much as we would want or do things. And Saturn's right now he's moving into the keyword of repression, which he is the planet of repression, and he's the planet of fear. So the greatest achievement that we can do is to step into our own fear and become unrepressed by not allowing the fear to rule our lives. That's what this time period, part of it, not all of it, is all about. So healing techniques that we want to talk about, but being able to overcome the fear within the self.
Yeah.
Whatever that fear is a big part of it. And a lot of it is the exterior world is a mirror of what's going on inside of yourself. And if you pay attention to what's going on in here. Years ago.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I thought you were pausing, but I would love to speak to that too.
Okay, go
work
ahead.
on self. Yeah, so I fully agree. Doing work on the self is imperative. And I even feel that way when it comes to past life regression work and now the quantum starseed work. It's really not about I only want to address things in other lives. Sometimes that's a little bit of a propensity that we might have coming into that type of work. Like, I just not going to focus on this life, but really, I'm particularly holding an energy when I do this work that we're going to go to exactly the place that we need to go to. And that could be this life. We're not avoiding any of those things. But in my personal practice, it is very, very important for me to be willing to look at myself. And so one of my favorite ways that I do that, I know everybody talks about journaling and it's a little bit like, okay, journaling, but seriously, there's something really powerful. What I started doing with myself initially is I would use medicine, and I would use a medicine that could help me go deep within the self, and I was literally exploring my psyche in this really powerful way. And initially I would feel that I was speaking with a spirit, and like with a spirit guide, with, some other being in some way. And then they would I would ask a question, I would have an intention, and I would write it down, and then, give it some time. And then over, little pieces of information would come in and it would answer that question. And then I would ask more questions. Another big piece of information comes in, and then I ask more questions and continue doing that. And over time, I realized that I'm literally speaking to myself, like a higher aspect of myself, but I'm speaking with myself. And I do that now in meditation on a very regular basis. I'm doing this practice of writing questions and answering them and then writing more. And I will literally get so much clarity and work through so many things. But beyond that, that's one tool. But I'm actually currently working with someone one-on-one, and we do somatic body work, basically, where we're going into like different things that are happening that, you know, I'm working through different anxieties or different, you know, ideas about this or that or whatever, traumas that are still unresolved. And we're going deep within the body itself and where the energy isn't moving in the body, and to like somatically move that energy out. So I so agree with you that becoming really, really courageous and like, I'm going to face myself head on, it's so, so invaluable. And to do it with support when we need to.
Like if you're freaking out, like one of the best things you can do is learn a breathing technique. You know, just you can do just like breathing work where you breathe in for so many seconds, like say 7 or 8, and then hold for 7 or 8, and then exhale. Or you can learn, you know, different breathing nostril techniques like pranayama, where you do different speeds, slow, fast, for different reasons. I teach some of these when I teach meditation for different purposes. But one of the things I'd like to say for about like you said, journaling. Years ago, Greg Braden did a video about the Essene masters that he came in contact with. And I think it's called, the video is like the 7 Essene, I don't know if it's principles or masters. You can find this video on YouTube, and it's teaching a small class. And it's one of the most insightful things that I've ever seen on what the Essene people knew on how to look within yourself. And they even have things to look at with your parents, like what the promise that they're holding for you, and these different kinds of things. But if you don't know where to start, and you don't know journaling, watch that video.
Yeah.
You know, watch a video on these people that have researched this stuff to where to look, and you'll find, you know, some people would say they would do it and they'll say it's not true for me. This doesn't hold true. But the person that understands totally recognize it, it will hold true if you understand what you're looking at. So I like how you're doing the meditation thing. You know, I've done like tons of different meditations in my life, and I used to, when I do healing work, I would take people through these meditations too to help them understand, like visualization ones. But I'm somebody that's always been in love with transcendental type meditation. So I hear this all the time, so I'm going to speak to this because I think meditation is something someone can do for themselves on a daily basis. It's probably the best thing you can do for yourself, as well as like qigong or some kind of energy work with yourself. But I hear it all the time. People think that they can't do it. They just can't do it. Or they want to listen to a meditation that, you know, that takes them somewhere. But I want to just put this out there for people that do meditation or don't really understand it, or they fear it, or they think that they can't do it. Because I've heard it over and over and over again. I can't do it. And I'll say, why can't you do it? And they say, I just can't sit still. Or I cannot not think a thought. And I want to let people know that it is incorrect in these meditations to think that you have to not think a thought.
Absolutely correct. Yep, you're right.
You're thinking of like you can get past like a mantra. A lot of people don't like using mantras, but a mantra that you're saying inwardly, there's thousands of mantras out there. So people can give wrong ones. Some are too powerful for certain people because they're meant for people that live in caves or monasteries. So you have to know it's a science of sound called Devanagari. So there's books, you know, by, you know, ancient people, the rishis that wrote these books known as the Vedas in India. It's all about science. It's the science of sound, and it's about the sound of the creation of the universe. Not
Oh,
just, it's not the sound that we're talking here. It's a language of creation. You could say it's the language of God, or they say it as of the God, but it's the vibrational language of the entire universe through the
mm,
different dimensional realities. And so when you're thinking of a certain sound, it's got its own breathing, living life, and you're drawing it from the spiritual realm to the physical. We're at the densest. We're here on Earth, right? We can all agree we're here on Earth, and there's these outside layers that make up. It's omnipresent, but it's transcendent at the same time. A lot of people don't understand that. The divine is omnipresent, all
yeah.
everywhere, all simultaneously. But it's
Oh,
transcendent. You can transcend this to back to it, or back to any little spot in it. But when you're thinking the mantra, it's cleaning and purifying the thoughts of the mind. And as
mm,
it clean, and it's also cleaning and purifying, your Sushumna and your Ida and your Pingala. It's cleaning up the chakras so you can transcend into the cosmic mind later on as you get more in depth. But just on a basic level, thinking the thoughts is okay. It's actually encouraged, because what's coming up in the mind needs to be processed and cleaned and purified and dealt with so that it goes away and it's not stuck in your consciousness.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
this idea that we need to sit here and think no thought, or just think of the breath, having the mechanism of the cleans the self, cleans the mind, and harmonizes, is a big deal that I feel like a lot of people just don't get, or they don't
Mhm.
understand. That's
Yeah.
my big. Does that make sense to you?
It absolutely makes sense to me. And I felt that way for a long time, that any idea that we have to be sitting there thinking no thought, that's not helping. That is not helping to be like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
It
Actually,
doesn't even make sense.
it doesn't. And I was reflecting on the fact that when I was really practicing meditation on a regular basis, I was experimenting with lots of different things.
We lost your sound.
For now, I had a call come
Yeah,
in.
it's back.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. Okay, I had a call come in. So I um where was I going with that? Okay, I was experimenting a lot, and I would well, I did all sorts of different things, but speaking of sound, one of my favorite things that I did kind of early on was to, one, not shun my thoughts and not think that I shouldn't be thinking them, but begin to really observe them and just notice what was happening. And then I was creating a little bit more space and a little bit more space between the thought. And I was really recognizing just this beautiful energy that was in between my thoughts. But something else I was doing with sound was to move the energy through my body. So as I'm, thinking different thoughts, or I'm trying to figure out what to do with myself, I'm letting sound come through my body. And that's when I began to experience this really beautiful, like snake-like energy moving up. We can call it Kundalini, we can call it whatever we want. But ultimately, I was just feeling this like really beautiful activation happening within my body. And I would just play with sound and let it move how it wanted to. And I would chant if there was a particular phrase from a song that felt really alive for me. I would chant it and I would sing it and I would let it just continue to build within me. And the thing is that meditation, we can work to be in a place where we're meditating and we're very quiet and we're introspective and reflecting and or experiencing total stillness, whatever feels right for us. But that for me was meditation too, when I was making the sound and moving the energy the way it wanted to move. I wasn't
Yeah.
letting it stagnate, and I wasn't certainly sitting there going, oh, I'm doing this horribly wrong, even though I've done that plenty of times too.
Right.
Or thinking like this isn't feeling good. but to just keep practicing, keep being with it, keep trying different things.
I have to tell you, I watched the video you posted yesterday on your Instagram channel. And so if you don't follow her on Instagram, go follow her. I think it's Quantum Stars. Is it Quantum Starseed?
Yep. Quantum Starseed Integration Sessions, I think. Yep.
Right. So she did this move where she shakes her shoulders. I'm not low enough in the camera, but if you've ever watched the documentary movie, I think it's something about the Secret Masters of Tibet or the Ancient Masters of Tibet. Have you watched that?
No.
There's a guy that practiced for several years of this one training where he jumps up in the air, where he's in like a lotus position, and then he hits this pad. He'd learned this in a cave for like, you have to master this over 2 to 5 years. He did the same thing. And he would do these breathings, and he could cock his head back and forth, but he would, and you were doing that naturally. And you know that what that's doing is it's giving oxygen to the Kundalini, bringing up the consciousness. You know, it's all about living your life on higher energy centers like the heart chakra, the throat, the third eye, and the crown, you know, bringing up the energy up to live at higher centers. And so when you're talking about this, I'm in total agreement with you shaking out and moving this.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that personally kills me is all these people go to yoga, and yoga means union. Not union with the person in the room with you. It's union. Actually, in yoga means meditation. It's connection to the source, you know, what you're doing. And all these people aren't meditating. They're going to yoga a lot of the time. Now, I'm not saying everyone, but most of these places, they're moving the posture, they're helping their backs or whatever, but it's contorting the body in ways that's getting rid of the stress and, you know, stuck energy. And then, and it's also connecting with the breath and releasing tension. And then to me, it's missing that deepest part of the preparation for meditation. I just wish more people were doing at least a 15 to 20 minute meditation, like afterwards, not just like laying on the mat relaxing, but like a real meditation to help heal the self or work on the self, you know?
Oh, I so agree with that. I actually just did my first in-person yoga class in a really long time. I just hadn't, honestly. So this is kind of going in a different way, but ties into this. But I really felt like really protective, not in like a fearful way, but just like holding my energy really close. And that does mean like who I choose to interact with, both in the physical and energetic. And for a while there, like I went into real hermit mode when I was still up in Oregon, and like a hermit mode that I had never in my entire life experienced. I have not been.
I was like that when I met you there. Yeah.
It's really interesting, but we can feel when things are not quite in alignment when we're kind of going out in public, right? Like there were very, very specific places that I would go in public to, because I could feel like, okay, this feels in energetic alignment. But now that I'm in Arizona, I'm actually feeling like really, really happy and okay to go out and to be home. Both is good too. But there's a lot more energetic alignment so far. But
there's also more sun there.
There's more sun. It's just so nice to be outside here. Yeah, that's really true too. But even like when it was nice there in Oregon, I obviously wanted to be in nature more than anything. But I heard it was actually Corey Good. I'm sure you're familiar with Corey Good. No. He's a whistleblower for the secret space program. And yeah, he's been talking for several years about everything. And
I know who you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, like we can have all our different ideas about, anyway, whatever, but I've definitely followed some of his stuff and it's been really helpful. He was talking about how people will at some point not want to go out in public, and you can just feel like the energy from people, and it's going to be really intense. And that was years and years ago. And I was like, yep, we're not there yet. But then this year I was like, oh, I know that's what was in my head. I was just like, yeah, I really don't want to go out that much. But then people are moving around, as we talked about earlier the other day, and I'm seeing more people move across states and making these big moves all over the place, or switching it up and having fully nomadic lifestyles or whatever. Like, so much of that is going on because we're literally in this massive creation space right now where we're figuring out what is it that we want to be creating.
That's, right now, astrologically, I'll throw in, we talked about the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction that's occurring. It's within, by the middle of the month, it'll be within the orb of influence, but Neptune's there, and it's in the last 10 degrees of Pisces, which is the wisdom or spiritual, I call decanate of the sign. So it's the last 10 degrees. So every 10 degrees, the first 10 degrees is will, the second 10 is love, and the third is wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So Neptune is the planet of divine love. It's the higher octave of Venus. Venus is love, and Neptune is divine love, even though it's this high vibrational. So it's high, it's like source kind of energy, I'll say. And Jupiter is coming in contact with this. So it's going to expand this. But Jupiter, to me, represents the third eye, or the vision of the future. And it's also in the keyword vicissitude, which is about recapitulating and moving and changing and shifting before this moves into Aries, which is a cardinal fire sign of initiating things, starting them up. So we're going to see massive amounts of people walking and moving and changing areas, jobs, goals, or whatever they're doing, because this is source. If you think about how big this is in a water sign, which is spiritual and emotional. Neptune, I call source energy. If you think of Jupiter as the vision, because if you think of Jupiter also, it co-rules that sign if you look at it, but it also rules Sagittarius, which is the archer pulling back the bow of intention to take aim at what it's aiming at.
Yeah.
An expansion. So this is the expansion of the divine sight, or the divine mind. What's going on? So Absolutely. So when someone says, like, we're in the fog of war, like that, because of all the fear going on, there's a major divine thing occurring right now that's beyond the rational mind's ability to understand or perceive.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're speaking into that. And the feeling, as we were talking earlier, the feeling that I've just been having increasingly is even beyond what I felt before, because I was definitely not engaging with like the fear tactics and that type of thing in the way that I think obviously a lot of the population is, but even less so than ever before. I'm not engaging with the information that is like, with what's like the technical thingies of what's happening on the world, on the world. But I just feel this very strong impulse, and this just, it's not even something I'm trying to do or forcing myself to do, but it feels like I would force myself to engage in the logistics of what's going on in the world right now. The most natural thing is to like let some of the things play out the way that they need to. And of course, within that, I'm still feeling a lot of compassion for all of the pain and suffering that might be occurring for people, but to not, I actually had a dream recently, and the the feeling that I was having before I had the dream was I think it was cosmic drama playing out or something like that. That was the word that came to me, is that this is like a cosmic drama that's going on right now. And so in the dream, it was like we literally had, as far as war goes, it was like we had these sticks, and there's the adversarial, and then the two sides basically, and they're just using sticks to poke each other and be like, oh no, I'm out of the, I'm dead. And the thing that really was clear to me in that dream is that yes, it's deeply sad, the things that are going on, and there is so much beyond what we can really understand as far as like what is just needing to play out and what is designed to play out here, and moving us in the direction that we are meant to go in, really. And we can hold both of those things with love and with compassion, that yes, there is suffering, and I feel for that deeply, and I'm sorry for that, and I'm also not wrapped up in it to the point that I can't actually function from my regulated center.
Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's really what's been clear for me as we move forward right now. Yeah.
Speaking of that, probably 20 years ago, I was like really broken in a bad spot. And my meditation teacher, and he was the guy that taught me astrology, but I would go to him for like counseling through astrology all the time. And when he was teaching me about meditation and stuff, he stopped and he said, when I grew up in the 60s and 70s, he grew up in Berkeley, and he's, the hippie era, all of this stuff. You had the Vietnam War going on, and he would be a participant in all of this, for change. And he learned that you couldn't legislate peace. This is a big topic because it's happening right now. Everyone's like, where's NATO? Where's the UN? Are these people even good or serving us, right? So I'm not going to get into that. I just want to get into the fact that he learned that the only person that he could change was himself. And once you change the inner, it affects the outer world. So it's the self-work. When you're sitting there watching all of this fear porn everywhere, and it puts you in this frozen state, like we talked about not wanting to go out because we felt uncomfortable going out. This was a good time to work on it on our inner self. So like I talked about Saturn being in the placement of fear and repression right now, and coming up for quite some time. Probably it's at least through the end of this year and into next year, Saturn will be in that placement. So we have to look at ourselves. This is what stops it, is overcoming the fear. When we're scared and hiding and not doing anything, we're not helping each other. Even if you're helping someone heal themselves or helping work on them, or if you're just doing whatever, it's not letting fear conquer your life and doing something, whether it's praying, meditating, energy work, any type of whatever you do, exercise, it gets rid of you do self-work. That you've got to raise your consciousness. And when you raise your consciousness, everyone wants to be around that vibrational frequency. And, they want to, they're attracted to that frequency. And sometimes when you're at a high frequency and you're like alone and you're really in a high frequency, it's affecting such a large area. You don't have to be in close proximity to these people. You're affecting change throughout the world in other ways. There's been lots of studies done in the transcendental meditation by lots of colleges around the world that's actually studied what happens when groups meditate together. And like there's a town in Iowa where I think the Maharishi Center University is, where the crime rate went down like 86 or 85% because so many people were meditating in the town. So you don't have to be, you can even do chanting. You know, chanting is evoking sounds, or singing different melodies and songs of these mantras. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that it's an inner state that we have. This is all about, it's not about egoic self, it's about the spiritual inner self shifting and changing energy.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And yeah, that's feeling so like a perfect place to seal the conversation for today. And I'm so excited to continue this conversation and just to keep offering our frequency in whatever way it feels right to, because I think everybody showing up just in their expression of who they are and how they are right now is exactly perfect. And we keep just deepening in our own like development. That's really what I'm here for. Like I'm ready to like keep doing the inner work, and also like how I can show up for others as well. But really it starts always with the self. I totally agree. Thank you for that, Jeff.
Thank you, Stephanie. And so to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram or Getter, and my username is Jeffrey Bryan. And you can follow my YouTube channel, Jeffrey Bryan. This will be posted on my YouTube channel and my Rumble channel. And if you want to follow Stephanie, you can make an astrology appointment with me also at astrologywithjeffreybryan.com. And I have meditations and protection videos on there as well on my website.
Awesome.
So how can they get a hold of you?
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. I super recommend Jeff for astrology, by the way. He's wonderful and has really helped me already so much in understanding my chart and just how to line things up throughout my year. It's been so helpful to me. You can find me on Instagram at Quantum Starseed Integration. And you can also find me on Facebook, same name, Quantum Starseed Integration. And my YouTube, I will also have this posted on my YouTube as well. I would love to, continue this conversation and more. So.
All right. Well, maybe next time we'll come up with like more healing techniques to talk about, or even deeper parts of it. All right. Well, let's end this now, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.